Hi, welcome back to Have a Drink, Solve a Case. It's been a while. I'm Steve.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Colby.
Today's case is going to be the Axeman of New Orleans. This case is about 100 years old, but it's pretty interesting. And with that, let's crack open a drink.
The Axeman of New Orleans is not as well known as other serial killers, but he was quite famous in his own time. Most of his victims were Italian grocers, and he never used his own axe. He used the victims' axes and left them at the scene. The first known victims of the killer were Joseph and Catherine Maggio. The couple was attacked on May 23, 1918. Their throats were slashed with a straight razor. Their heads were also bashed in with an axe. Bloody clothes were found at the scene of the crime, presumably indicating the killer changed clothes before leaving the crime scene. The bodies were discovered by Joseph's brother, one of whom, Andrew, lived in the house. Andrew was a barber and freely admitted the straight razor may have been his. He was the first suspect of the killing, but was never arrested. Louis Busimer and his mistress, Harriet Lowy, were attacked on June 27, 1918, in the back of his grocery store. Lowy was hacked over his left ear and found unconscious. Harriet survived for a time and implicated Bessemer as a German spy. Yes, a German spy. He was arrested and released, only to be arrested again after Harriet named him as the killer on her deathbed. He served 9 months in prison before his acquittal. Interestingly, the bigger news story at the time was not that they were attacked by a lunatic, but that she was his mistress. Anna Schneider was discovered by her husband covered in blood on August 5, 1918. Anne was 28 years old and 8 months pregnant. Her head was bashed in, probably from a nearby lamp. Presumably, there was no axe or hatchet to be found in the house, so the killer had to settle for whatever he could find. Anna recovered and gave birth to a little girl soon after. She claimed to have no memory of the attack. Joseph Romana was discovered, still alive, by his two nieces in their shared home on August 10, 1918. Despite serious head wounds, the elderly man was able to walk to a waiting ambulance. He died 2 days later. At this point, a sense of panic began to hit the city. The crimes had seemed unrelated before, but it was now believed that a madman was on the loose. People began carrying shotguns with them, and families started to sleep in shifts. It was not until March 10, 1919, that there was another attack. Charles and Rosie Cortemeliga and their infant daughter, Mary, were discovered by neighbor and fellow grocer, 69-year-old Lorillard Giordano, and his 18-year-old son, Frank. There was a bloody axe found in the backyard, and it was determined that the killer had pried open a panel in one of their doors. This was the usual avenue of attack used by the Axeman, leading investigators to suspect the killer was a slim man, as a larger individual will not be able to crawl through the hole. Charles and Rosie suffered severe head trauma but survived. Mary died of her injuries. Soon after, Rosie pointed the finder at Lorland and his son, and the charges were filed. Charles Cortemeligia disappeared with his wife and said that it was not their neighbor, and soon divorced his wife. The Jordans were arrested and convicted. After the pair had been in jail for a year, Rosie admitted that she'd lied because of some type of grudge against the Jordan family. On March 13th, 1919, a letter was published in the local papers supposedly from the Axeman. The writer claimed to be a demon from the hottest hell and promised to commit more bloody murders. He claimed to have a close relationship with the Angel of Death. The most famous part of the letter concerned his love of jazz music. The section read, "Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time, on next Tuesday night, I'm going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition for you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then, so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, is that some of you people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe." Not surprisingly, the jazz clubs were quite busy that night, and most homes did, indeed, play jazz music. There were no murders that night. Although the letter adds to the murderer's legacy, most historians don't believe the killer actually wrote the letter. Miriam Davis wrote The Axeman of New Orleans, the true story, and she names musician John Joseph Davala as a possible author. Immediately after the letter was published, Davala came out with a song titled the mysterious Axeman's jazz, Don't Scare Me, Papa, which was wildly successful and earned him a tidy sum of cash. On August 10th, 1919, Steve Boca, another grocer, woke to find a dark figure hovering over him. He somehow stumbled outside before discovering his head was bashed in. He recovered, but had no memory of the attack. A panel had been chipped open in his back door. Sarah Lawman was attacked on October 27, 1919. She was discovered by neighbors who had heard a commotion broke into the home. Sarah was unconscious from a head injury and was missing several teeth. The 19-year-old girl survived but could not remember anything. There was a bloody axe discovered on the front lawn. The final known attack was on October 27, 1919. Esther Paponi heard noise in her bedroom and saw two men running away. Her husband, Mike, was dead on the bed. He was hit 18 times in the head with an axe. Esther is an interesting figure in the story. She moved her children to Los Angeles soon after the murder and married Angelo Albano, whom she knew from her time in New Orleans. The couple had some kind of relationship with criminal Joseph Doc Mumphrey, who had spent time in prison for bombing an Italian grocery store. On the anniversary of Mike Paponi's death, Angelo disappeared. Mumphrey told Esther that he was responsible and demanded money when things quiet down. Mumphrey showed up on December 5th, 1924 and demanded cash and jewelry. Esther shot him with a .38 caliber pistol in the head and chest. She then used another gun and emptied that one into Mumphrey. When police asked what happened, she said she did it because this man killed my husband. It is not known if she was referring to her late husband in New Orleans or her missing husband in Los Angeles, who was never found.
So, does anybody have any thoughts?
I do. I thought it was pretty interesting that he never used his own tool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, did everybody have an axe back then? I mean, is it cold in New Orleans in the summertime?
I don't know.
But yeah, it's really weird.
I mean, the weird thing is that he just left the axe there.
Yeah, he'd break in, steal their axe, bash their heads in, and then leave the axe and go. He was an interesting serial killer.
He definitely was not because a lot of the serial killers you see, they're really precise with what they do, and you know what? I don't like that grocer.
Yeah.
I don't
well,
like these Italian.
He definitely didn't like Italian
I bet
grocers.
he has an axe in his shed.
Well,
Let me go check.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about this guy. He definitely had an axe to grind. So, I had a thought about the song. I don't think he really wrote that note. I think it was the guy that wrote that Axeman song. I think it was either him or like whatever company he worked for or whatever. They definitely wrote the note, sent to all the papers, and then they had that song ready to go. The Axeman killer song. It was a smart move, but I don't think this guy could write that well. I think he was just a lunatic killer.
I don't think he would go like, I like jazz. What about everyone play jazz, specifically in this part of town?
I hope it was. I hope that was the case. And he was just this crazy guy that just loved jazz and killing.
You guys like anything else about it?
I like the fact that apparently it's really hard to kill people with axes.
He has like six people died out of like how many?
Yeah, he had I think he killed about half of them died. I think he had a batting average of 500. In baseball, that's good, but in serial killing, I feel like that's
I don't think that's a very high number.
Yeah, it's a low average.
A lot of the serial killers is like they just found corpses, and the one time that someone escaped, they just found them. Right. But then this guy,
he
probably more than half of his victims just went, "I'll be fine," and lived.
Just an axe sticking
one
out
of
their head.
them
It's
had,
fine.
well, the woman had a baby. Like a week after she'd been, knocked out by the guy, she got lost a bunch of teeth, and then she wound up having a baby.
She got bludgeoned, and it was like, you know what? I'll have a baby.
I'd say the people were a little hardier back then than they are now. There's some tough people. But
So have axe wounds in the middle of their head. This is fine.
right, yeah. It's the Monty Python thing. It's just a scratch. I'm ready to have the baby.
I also really liked the note. Even though we don't think it was actually him who wrote the note about you gotta play jazz, but I think if it was him, which I doubt it was. But if it was, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm the angel of death, and I see you from above. And,
Yeah, I like how he had a little mojo to him. He's like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm gonna just say I'm a devil.
right.
They'll buy it.
You probably, back then, probably half the people believed him that he was a devil. Not saying he wasn't, but it was probably believable back then, you know?
I think that he.
Serial killers weren't as prevalent as they were back like in the 80s, 1980s.
I think it was probably if it was him, he was just going on a business trip. Like,
Yeah. He's out of town. I'm just in the notes. Hey, everybody, make sure you play jazz.
No
or
wonder
he,
there weren't
he wants to
killings
get
that
like
night.
a restful night of sleep or something. So he's like, hey everyone, you better be playing jazz.
Yeah, maybe he just really liked jazz. He wanted to get some sleep that night.
One needed some what is that white noise?
Yeah. Put him right to sleep. All right. I think we should go with the suspects.
The first suspect is Joseph Mumfree. Before Esther filled him with bullets, he was known to lead a blackmailing gang in New Orleans that targeted Italian-American grocers, which I think was pretty interesting. Esther claimed he was the killer, and when he was in jail, the killing stopped, but when he was out, the killing started up again. And there was no more cases of the
It
Axeman.
stopped with him.
After Esther shot him, got more guns, shot him again,
Until
and
she.
all of a sudden the cases are done.
So,
Yeah.
so
It's if it was just one guy, it's likely then she stopped it. She's the hero.
that
Although
makes.
there's when I did research on this, it's kind of conflicting about Esther and if she really did move to L.A. and if that really happened. It's when you do research for things that happened 100 years ago, the records kind of blur. But I like that. I like that. If her story's true, maybe she did. But she said there were 2 people, and all the other cases said there was 1. So that kind of leads into Zach and the other possible.
Oh yeah, the copycats. The killings were usually quite similar, but not always. Some attacks used other objects, and the description of the killer was sometimes different. Esther said there was 2 attackers, but that also makes me think that they were dealing with axe wounds in their head, and it wouldn't be shocking if they, because a lot of them
Yeah.
didn't even recall what happened.
Yeah, that's a good point. Speaking of, I know a little bit about head injuries, and I'll tell you what, your memories get blurred. So if there's a guy out there bashing heads in with axes, you're gonna get like conflicting testimony. I can guarantee you that.
And when she saw 2 people, maybe she was just seeing double.
Seeing
because,
double, maybe.
Because
But she wasn't attacked. She went up to the room, and her husband was already dead, and she saw 2 people leaving. That was her testimony.
Wouldn't that be more of a mafia thing, though? You guys, as a copycat killers, wouldn't that be more of a...
Right. That leads into the next theory. Early mafia, Black Hand. Black Hand crime was a name given to a blackmail technique used in Italian neighborhoods around the time. Yeah, who knew? Some people think that they were being attacked over unpaid blackmail debts, but this doesn't make a lot of sense because a lot of people survived, and they weren't attacked again. A complementary theory is that Sicilian immigrants at the time, not trusting police, settled disputes in the violent manner called a vendetta. This might explain why most of the victims were Italian and they all worked in the same business. Well, most of them in grocery business. And I don't believe it was the mafia because I'm sure the mafia people are very nice people.
Yeah.
But it is possible. It was a different it was a different time and they were very distrustful of the police at the time. So it is possible people were just solving their own problems. But it sounds some of that might have been that, like you said, with the copycat killing. But there's definitely a serial killer involved somewhere. I mean, anybody who watches the current serial killer shows, they break into the house, they kill you, and they leave.
And we know it was at
They
least
don't
one
leave
guy
axes
one time
behind.
because the panel
Yeah.
of the door was at least 2 times. That's how he got in.
Yeah, most times.
So you don't know it's a serial killer.
Most times he pried open the panel. Because you see doors now and they have the panels, but they're just there for decoration. But apparently that's how they used to make the door. And he would pry it open, and climb in. That's why the police thought he was a slender guy, but all the descriptions said he was a big guy.
Massive.
But you know,
Big
if you
and
have
burly.
you have somebody over on top of you hitting you with an axe. Going back to what you were saying before, Zach. I mean, things get confused in your brain. But
You might think you can't outstrength them, not because your brain isn't functioning correctly, but maybe because he's a big dude and your brain thinks,
right.
huh?
If it was me, I'd be like, why is there an axe going through my skull?
right, like the one guy that didn't have any memory, he just remembered some guy on top of him hitting him because you get hit in the head enough times with the axe.
Your brain will imagine some things.
Right. So I like this theory. I actually like bits of all of it.
I do.
I
yeah.
think it's entirely possible that it's a combination. That there was a main guy that was going out killing people. That there were some copycat things going on, and maybe the Black Hand was involved. But I think it was definitely a mix of everything.
Maybe
And in the
Esther-
last case, the thing with Esther, I mean, that sounds like a personal thing. It sounds to me like she. So I think Esther's story was kind of, I don't want to say suspicious, but I think that, her story was two people. Everything else was like one person. Yeah. Her second husband disappeared. Some guy showed up on her door threatening her, and she took care of him.
Oh, she just had a gun on hand.
She was ready. She had two guns on hand. She was ready for this guy.
Well,
So-
didn't I say that she had one, and then she's like, I'll
she
just
had
go grab another one.
She had one, and then she emptied that,
And then she's
she
like-
went back. Her second gun came back and finished him off. So I think Esther's story's, I don't know. It sounds different, but after Esther took care of this guy Mumfrey, there were no more attacks.
That which makes me think two things. Either one, Mumfrey was the killer, or two, she scared the other killer thinking that he was gonna get
Right.
shot, and he never attacked again.
Right.
I don't know about the second one. I honestly, I want to believe the Joseph one from
Yeah.
Humphrey. I think it'd just be a nice
Right, because you
wrapping up of the case.
like the bad guy to get taken care of.
But I
Right.
think maybe it's either copycats or mafia. Even though I want it to be the other one, I just don't see it.
Right. Yeah, I think there's all three. I think there was one main guy doing it. I think there were a few copycats mixed in. And,
But then the one with the two people that I think.
and
That
I think it was an interesting neighborhood, and I think lots of things were going on.
I definitely think the one with two killers with the mafia, unless some copycat was
Well,
like, to my best
yeah.
friend, hey, let's go kill
Yeah,
someone.
not like what we know of as a mafia, but what the Black Hand back then. There was something going on, and then she moved away, and they maybe went after her next husband, and then she solved the problem on her own, which is good. But I really like this case. You're the one that introduced me to the case, and it's like a lesser known one. We might not get as many views as we've gotten from, like, say, the D.B. Cooper case, but I really find it interesting. The whole jazz thing is kind of cool, and the note. So it's a really good one, and I really enjoyed doing this one.
Even though it took a while.
Yeah.
We just got to find the time.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Our
I
next
didn't have any free
hopefully
time.
our next video won't take as long, but we'll be back.
Also, since we're wrapping this up, any cases you guys want to see, comment them down below, and we'll look into it. And yeah, I think that
That's it.
wraps this up.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Yep.
We'll see you soon.
See ya. Bye.